Alrighty, hold up a second. Before you toss that piece of wood in the trash, do me a favor and just look at it. That little offcut in your hand, the one you were about to chuck in the bin or throw on the burn pile, that is not garbage. That is money you already paid for and completely forgot about. See, when you buy a couple of 2x4s for a project, you never use every inch, and you end up with a pile of cutoffs in the corner of the garage that just sits there. Most folks treat that pile like trash. I did too for years. But here's the fun part. Every one of those scraps is basically free material, which means anything you build out of it is pretty much pure profit. So today I'm going to walk you through 10 things you can make from the scrap already in your shop, sell for real cash, and clear that pile out while you're at it. Let's dig in. Okay, so here's how we're doing this. I dumped my whole scrap bin out on the bench this morning, and Biscuit immediately grabbed the first piece and ran off with it, so we're off to a great start. The way I sorted everything, we're going to climb the pile. We start way down at the bottom with the itty bitty cutoffs, the little 2 and 3 inch chunks you'd normally just sweep into the dustpan, and we work our way up to the bigger offcuts, those wider boards you've been hoarding in the corner for no real reason. And every single project I show you assumes you've got almost no tools. If all you own is a saw, some sandpaper, and a little bit of glue, you are good to go here. No jointer, no planer, none of that fancy stuff, because I'm trying to keep this really beginner friendly. And on a bunch of these, I'm going to show you how to make plain cheap pine look like old rustic barn wood, because nobody's paying good money for something that just screams homemade 2x4. Alright, bottom of the bin, here we go. Number 1, keychains. These are the smallest thing on the whole list, and they come from the smallest scrap you've got. Those little end cuts that are maybe 2 inches long, the ones you'd swear were completely useless. Grab one, sand it smooth on all the faces, round the edges over a little so it feels nice in a pocket, and drill one hole up top for the ring. That is the entire build. Now if you leave it plain pine, it looks like, well, a scrap of pine. So this is where a little finish earns its keep. I like to hit it with a dark stain, or do the vinegar and steel wool trick, where you soak a pad of steel wool in some vinegar overnight, and it turns the wood this weathered gray-brown color. Looks like it's been hanging in a barn for 50 years. Then you can wood burn a little design on there, a mountain, an initial, whatever you're into. Slap a key ring through the hole and you are done. These sell for about $3 or $4 each, and honestly, if you brand them up nice with a burned-in logo, people happily pay more. Out of a 2-inch scrap you were going to throw away. That's the whole game right there. Number 2, fridge magnets. Same tiny scraps, just barely bigger. Cut yourself a little square or a little rectangle, something about 1.5 inches across, sand it down nice, and glue a small magnet on the back. You can grab a whole bag of those little round magnets for a few bucks and get dozens of them out of one bag, so your cost here is almost nothing. On the front is where you have some fun. Paint a little design, burn in a word, cut a tiny state shape, or just put a coat of that barnwood finish on it and call it rustic. Biscuit's face is currently on 3 of mine. Don't ask me why. Now the trick with magnets is you do not sell them one at a time. You bundle them. A set of 4 or 5 in a little cloth bag moves way better than singles, and you can get around $10 or $12 for a set that costs you basically nothing but a couple magnets and some glue. Cheap, fast, and you can knock out a whole dozen while you're sitting on the couch watching TV. Number 3, ornaments. Now these are seasonal, so just keep that in the back of your mind, but around the holidays they sell like absolute crazy. You want a small flat scrap for these? 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch thick is perfect. Those thinner offcuts you never know what to do with. Cut it into a shape. A tree, a star, a little round disc, whatever you can pull off with the saw you've got. And if all you own is a straight saw, no problem. Discs and stars and diamonds are your best friends. You don't need any fancy curves. Sand it, drill a tiny hole at the top for a loop of twine, and then decorate. Paint it, wood burn it, or leave it raw with just a coat of finish for that farmhouse look everybody's chasing right now. I did a whole batch of these last winter from the cutoffs left over from that floating shelf build I did a while back. You might remember those. And they sold out at a little market before I even got my table fully set up. Ornaments go for about $5 to $8 each, and if you box them up as a set of 3 or 6, even better. Free scrap turning into holiday money. Number 4, plant markers. Okay, these are stupid, simple, and I love them for exactly that reason. You want the thin strips here, those skinny little rip-off cuts, the ones that are maybe 1 inch wide and you've got 100 of. Cut them into a little stake shape, point it on the bottom so it pokes down into the dirt, flat up top so you've got a spot to write. Sand the splinters off, hit it with a little outdoor finish so it survives getting watered, and that is genuinely it. You write the herb name on there, basil, thyme, rosemary, or you burn it in for the fancy version. I made a set of these for the half-dead herb plants I've been nursing back to life on my windowsill, and I gotta be honest, the markers came out looking a lot healthier than the plants did. A set of 6 of these sells for around $12 at a market or online, and gardeners absolutely eat them up in the spring. Thin scrap, quick money, and your basil finally knows its own name. And hey, if you've watched little scraps turn into keychains and magnets and plant markers and thought, okay, I want to keep going, then stick with me and tap that subscribe button. This is Hank Hardwood, where we squeeze real money out of cheap construction lumber and the offcuts most folks throw straight in the bin. We're not even halfway up the pile, and it gets better from here. Alright, back to the pile. Number 5, coasters. Now we're stepping up a little in scrap size, and this is where the barnwood magic really gets to show off. You want scraps about 4 inches square for these, and here's a little tip, they do not all have to match. Grab a few different offcuts, mix the grain up, it actually looks better when it's a little varied. Sand each one flat and smooth, knock the sharp corners down, and now for the finish. This is that vinegar and steel wool trick I mentioned earlier, and on a flat coaster face it looks incredible. Gives you that gray weathered barn board look on a piece of pine that cost you absolutely nothing. Seal the top so a sweaty glass doesn't wreck it, then glue a little cork or some felt on the bottom so it doesn't scratch up somebody's table, and boom, look at that. That right there is a full stack of finished coasters, sitting on the bench, made entirely out of stuff that was headed for the trash about an hour ago. A set of 4 sells for $15 to $20, and honestly, the barnwood ones are what people reach for first. Every single time. Now we're getting into the chunkier stuff. Number 6, candle holders. This is where those thick offcuts finally earn their keep, and if you've ever cut down a 4x4 post, those leftover blocks are just perfect for this. Same goes for any short, chunky piece, too heavy to be a coaster and too small to be a shelf. That awkward middle size finally has a job. Take a solid chunk, sand it up real nice, and then you've got 2 easy versions to choose from. For a tea light, you just drill a wide, shallow hole in the top, about 1.5 inches across, deep enough to drop the little metal cup down into. For a taper candle, you drill a smaller hole that fits a standard candle. Do a row of 3 blocks at different heights, and now you've got a matching set that honestly looks like something off a shelf in a fancy home store. Give them the barnwood finish, or char the outside a little for a moody, dark look. Just be smart with the torch on that, keep it away from anything flammable, and don't do anything dumb. These sell for $8 to $15 depending on the size, and the sets of 3 do even better than the singles. Big chunky scrap, big chunky profit. Number 7, cord organizers. Now this one's a bit of a sleeper, but hear me out, because everybody on earth has a drawer full of tangled up charger cords. Take a small block of scrap, something that fits in the palm of your hand, sand it down and cut a couple of slots into it, or drill a hole through it that a cord can wrap around and tuck into. Some folks add a little dowel peg for the cord to wrap on. It's a tiny build, 5 minutes tops, but it solves a real annoying everyday problem, and solving an annoying problem is exactly what makes people pull out their wallet. Finish it clean or do the rustic look, add a little branding, and these sell great to the desk and office crowd. They're small, so you price them small, $4 or $5 each, but they cost you nothing and you can make a whole bunch in one sitting. Sell one in a bundle with a matching coaster, and now you've got yourself a little desk set. That's how you turn a $2 item into a $15 sale. Number 8, cutting boards. Alright, this is the big earner on the whole list, and it comes from a scrap that most people don't even realize they can use. All those strips, the skinny rip-off cuts left over from a build, do not toss those, glue them up instead. You lay a bunch of strips side by side, run a bead of glue down between each one, clamp the whole thing together, and let it dry overnight. What you end up with is a striped glued up panel, and if you mix light strips and dark strips, it looks like a real butcher block, the kind that costs a small fortune in a store. Now here's my honest beginner note on this one. Without a planer, flattening a glue up is the tricky part, so try to keep all your strips the same thickness going in, and do your gluing nice and careful. Take your time getting it flat in the clamps, because a clean flat glue up saves you a ton of sanding later. Once it's fully dry, sand it smooth, round over the edges, and finish it with food-safe mineral oil. None of the barnwood chemicals on this one obviously, since it's touching food. And one more honest tip, do not skimp on the glue, and do not rush the clamping, because a gappy glue up is the one thing that makes a cutting board look homemade in the bad way. Get it tight and it looks like real money. These sell for $25 to $40, more if you do fancier patterns, and they're built entirely out of strips you are about to burn. Number 9, drawer organizers. This one takes a couple of the medium offcuts and a little bit of patience, but it's a really strong seller because you can make them custom. You cut some thin strips and a small flat piece for the base, and you build little dividers into a tray that drops into a silverware drawer, or a junk drawer, or a desk drawer. It's basically a shallow box with a couple of walls inside it, glue, and maybe a few small nails or brads if you've got them, and you are set. And the selling trick here is that custom fit. People will happily pay more for one built to their exact drawer, so if you take orders and size it to their measurements, you can charge more for it. Finish it however you want, though for something living inside a drawer, I usually just keep it simple. These go for $15 to $25, and the custom ordered ones push a good bit higher. It's honestly the same basic idea as that shop storage tray I built for my own drill bits a while back, just prettied up enough that somebody actually wants it sitting in their kitchen. And number 10, small shelves. We made it all the way to the top of the bin, the single biggest offcut you've got, that wider board you've been stepping over and cursing at for a month. This is the finale for a reason, because a little shelf is the piece that actually looks like furniture, and it sells like furniture too. Take your widest scrap board for the shelf itself, cut a couple of small brackets or supports out of some other offcuts, and put together a simple floating shelf or a little bracket shelf. Sand it all down and then give it the full barnwood treatment. The vinegar and steel wool, maybe a light dry brush of white paint over the top, and all of a sudden that plain construction lumber looks like a reclaimed board pulled straight off an old farmhouse wall. Nobody looking at it would ever guess it started life as a 2x-whatever in the corner of your garage. If you want it to hang easy for whoever buys it, add a little keyhole slot or a sawtooth hanger on the back so they can just pop it on a screw. That tiny bit of thought is the kind of thing that turns a browser into a buyer. These sell for $20 to $35, and it's the piece that makes somebody trust you enough to come back and buy the rest of your stuff, made from the board you very nearly threw out. Now real quick, because I always get asked this, where do you actually sell this stuff? Couple of easy spots. Local craft fairs and farmers markets are gold for wood stuff. Folks love buying handmade off a real person. Online you've got the big handmade marketplaces and the local buy and sell groups, and those move the little items fast. And do not sleep on just telling people you already know. Half my early sales were friends and neighbors who saw a piece on the bench and wanted one. One tip that matters way more than you'd think. Take your photos in good natural light on a plain background, because a clean photo of that barnwood finish sells the piece before anybody reads a single word. And price it with a little confidence. You made it by hand out of solid wood. That's worth more than some plastic thing off a shelf, so do not go undercharging yourself. Okay, so let's back up and look at what actually just happened here. We started with a bin full of stuff you already paid for and were about to throw away, and we walked it all the way up the pile, from little keychains out of 2-inch cutoffs to a real wooden shelf out of your biggest offcut. 10 different things, and nearly every dollar of it is close to pure profit because the wood was already yours to begin with. And that is the whole point I keep hammering on this channel. You do not need walnut, and you do not need a $5,000 shop to build real stuff and make real money. You need cheap lumber, a few basic tools, and the willingness to look at a scrap pile and see a cash pile. And the beautiful part is you can start with whatever you've got. 2 coasters and a keychain this weekend, a shelf the next. Biscuit is currently asleep on the last board, so I guess that one is not for sale. But the rest of that pile is fair game, so go on and clear yours out. So there's your empty scrap bin and a stack of stuff to sell. If that finished shelf made you want to raid your pile, subscribe and stick around, because this is Hank Hardwood, and I've got a ton more cheap lumber builds coming, the kind where a few bucks of 2x4s becomes something you'd be proud to put in your house. Come build the next one with me.